The second persona is what I call the extrovert. Now, this is the person, and an extrovert can mean lots of different things to lots of different people. A lot of times, the classic definition of extrovert is that just get energy being around people. Now, in this particular persona, I'm going to describe this as it's the first person to offer a response to your questions. I saw earlier when I was talking about what are some of the most challenging people you've faced. One person said, the person who thinks they're the only person in the room, right? So the first person to offer a response to your questions, they have something to add to every point that you make. They have something to add to other people's thoughts, right? They take over small group discussions, and when you get that kind of person in here, I'm kind of curious in terms of when you've been in front of that type of person before. Um, I'm just reading the chat, and I love the sense of humor that a lot of people bring to these sessions. But when you get into a training environment where you have the extrovert, what is the impact that it could have on your training environment when you have one person who's the first person to respond, always adding to your points or other people's points? Um, yeah, so we're already getting into some strategies. Assign them a role, absolutely. Other people don't answer, share their points of view. Others can withdraw, absolutely. Others can check out. I know that when I'm in a session as a learner and somebody else is offering all the responses, I'm like, "Ooh, this is great. I can just sit back, right?" And so I don't have to be as present. Others don't feel comfortable speaking. That could happen too. Some other things that we have is narrative hijacking, right? So if one person is offering all the thoughts and sharing all the anecdotes, we could spend 20 minutes on that anecdote before we can get back to the topic. Or others, something else, people get annoyed, share one more point and then ask if others have ideas. So we have some strategies in here. Something else that happens here is that when you toss out a question so it's not even raising hands, somebody just shouts out the answer every time. Other people don't even have time to process, even if they wanted to answer, because suddenly when somebody has a thought or answer that comes out, it disrupts that processing ability, and that person might also hijack some small group discussion. So I see some people raising their hands saying, "I'm guilty of this." I remember when my grad school program when I had a class on training and facilitation, I was the worst at this. This was me, and I could see how annoyed my professor would get sometimes. But I just had a lot to say. It didn't make me a bad person, but hopefully everybody else could have appreciated my contributions as well. But I do know that other people needed to also be engaged here. So what might drive this behavior? It's an experienced professional. They're excited about this topic, they feel they're good with this topic and they have lots of share, or maybe even they feel there's a better way to talk about this topic, right? It comes from a good place. I think I hear what he's saying, but there's a better way to talk about this. Or maybe they feel like there's more to this topic than is being said by you or others in the room. And that could very well be true. I know that for me, a lot of times I stuff a lot in and I need to keep moving. And so I don't get to talk about every single thing about the topic, but that's not the purpose of the session also. So we do need to keep that in mind. How do we engage this? We can acknowledge this, thank you for the contribution, and pivot, right? Go right back to what we're saying. Or and I see there's some really great thoughts in here already in terms of how you might address this. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, okay, thank you, Brian. And does anybody else have any thoughts? So let's hear from somebody else. Sometimes it's helpful to pause, even if we have a series of large group discussions or questions to pause that to toss that to large group. When we see this, it is okay to pivot our strategy. And sometimes we might want to just say, all right, before I get an answer for this next question, what I want people to do is to think about this question first. I don't want to hear any thoughts or answers. I want you to think about this first. Then what I would like you to do is just turn to the person next to you and share, right? So this stops this allows people time to process and stops one person from dominating the entire group. Or, sometimes it's just helpful to physically fix your gaze. If we have the person who's always answering over here, sometimes I will look over here after my question, even if that person has their hand up, and I'll say, does anybody have any thoughts? Anybody at all, right? And sometimes that gets a chuckle. That person who always has their hand up gets kind of the point sometimes. And then there's always the parking lot. opportunity as well. And so, especially if somebody has a lot to say or want to expand upon it, you know what? I hear what you're saying. If you could write that topic down, put it up on the parking lot, we'll come back to it coming out of a break or during a break or something. But we do need to move on. All right. Yes, the story wall. Absolutely.